What's up everybody, I'm Kirk and this is the State of the Boom Next Fest edition, covering the best FPS demos from the June 2026 Steam Next Fest. There were over 4,000 demos showcased in this Next Fest, and hundreds of them were first-person shooters. Wowza. For today's video, I played as many of them as I humanly could, picked my top 15, and listed them from least favorite to favorite. Although I should stress, all of them I thought were awesome for one reason or another, and should be on your wish list. A few things before we start. Some of these demos have been around for some time, but my attitude is, if they were a part of this Next Fest and I haven't played them yet, then they're fair game. And if there's a demo you really enjoyed that I don't have listed here, show it some love and shout it out in the comments. This Next Fest had an overwhelming amount of good stuff, and I'm sure something slipped past me as well as the others watching. Alrighty, let's start fattening up those wish lists. Starting off our demo journey is Washington Prime, which was recently picked up by Perfect Random, the publisher of Sulphur. This one is steeped in 90s charm, built in Jeezy Doom no less to really sell the old school vibe, and styled like a cheesy 90s action thriller, complete with low-budget FMV cutscenes. I can't tell if it's all supposed to be intentionally or unintentionally hilarious, but the fact that I'm not sure I feel is all a part of the charm.
The only thing I'll be serving is names, and I won't spend a day in prison, you can count on it.
While very much a run-and-gun shooter, Prime is leaning more towards a tactical experience, with an emphasis on quote-unquote realism, with realistically portrayed weapons and environments. And oh boy does it mean it for the environments. The first map has you exploring a full office floor, and I mean full office floor. Hallways full of offices with bathrooms, supply closets, and mazes of cubicles. And true to a real-life office, it's bland, dull, and makes me want to go home. And the amount of detail put into making this place believably mundane is commendable. Washington Prime is also unforgiving. Even playing it on normal difficulty, I found I was getting smeared left and right. Players will have to be a little more methodical and check their corners, or else find themselves in a sea of red. I'll be honest, I can't say I was loving this demo. I was frustrated through most of it, and navigating its levels was tedious. But I have to say, there is some good work put into this one, especially when we consider it's a GZ Doom title. And I do recognize that Washington Prime is trying to do something very specific, and my hunch on those types of games is, you give them a chance, they can end up being very rewarding. And yes, all this corny 90s style has me very intrigued.
You remember what we need to do?
Yeah, make them pay for what they did to Mom.
Gunnstoppable has had a demo out for some time, and I actually played an early version of it late last year, even featuring it in a demo roundup video. And in all honesty, I wasn't a fan. But since then, the developer has been updating it, adding features, polishing up visuals, and of course, taking in a lot of player feedback. So I decided to give it another spin, and I have to say, the work shows. Gunnstoppable is a colorful roguelite arena movement shooter with a dual-wield shooting system, rail grinding, and a nifty grapple hook. Tons of action, lots of upgrades, lots of twitch. It's not the tightest feeling shooter of its ilk, but all of its pieces so far feel good. The movement is strong, with its grapple hook mechanic feeling effortless. The shooting is solid, with lots of fun weapon combinations to be had with the dual wielding, and most importantly, swapping weapons on each hand is intuitive, assuming you're comfortable with the mouse wheel. And in general, there's a good flow to the combat with solid challenge. Where I think there could be improvement is while the visuals are certainly cleaner than when I last saw them, I feel enemies could pop a lot more. Also, enemy AI seems to be a little all over the place. Some enemies seem appropriately aggressive, while some seem to be floating around doing nothing, and the sound needs a lot of work. The guns in particular do not sound good. No oomph, no sense of power to them. Little pea shooter sounding things when they should be bassy and pounding. Still a little rough around the edges, but Gunnstoppable is in far better shape than when I played it last, and it's shaping up to become a fun game. Next, we're going back to basics with Vivid Intrusion, a wave-based arcade-style roguelike with a crunchy, surreal graphical style. I'm a little bit of a sucker for these Devil Daggers-like shooters. When done well, I can spend hours in them, and this demo definitely had me hooked longer than I expected. Far longer than what was responsible with the huge amount of demos I had to sift through with this Next Fest. It's just simple and solid. Moving and shooting feel good, and the upgrades feel impactful, especially with the steady escalation of challenge. I also appreciate a game that can present its aspects in a very basic manner and still lend a lot of charm. The only bad thing was I did suffer some big hitches playing this. Surprising performance drops for something so simplistic. Hopefully this won't be the case for the full version. Dimenshot is a trippy movement shooter that is definitely taking a lot of influence from Ultrakill. In fact, calling this an Ultra-like might be fitting. And initially I was kinda lukewarm on this one as I was feeling it was too much of an Ultrakill knockoff. But the further I got into it, the more I saw what it was doing to set itself apart. And the key difference is melee weapons are the core focus in combat, with a katana and hammer your first two implements. Guns are still a big part of the tapestry, but they're disposable and not the main things to rely on. More importantly though, the melee weapons have secondary powers that you will need to take advantage of. The katana, for instance, can do a slow down quick swipe, and more impactful is the axe, which can be flung into the air and used as a grapple point so you can fling yourself up and rain down pain on some polygons. If Dimenshot revolves around players creatively using these secondary abilities together, then I think it has a real chance of standing out in the crowded space of stylish Ultrakill-like movement shooters flooding Steam. Bloodspill was announced during the German showcase in Summer Games Fest, and is what I would call an oh crap simulator. This is a medieval one-shot, one-kill online arena shooter, where you have a crossbow and a knife, both of which can eliminate opponents in one shot. Each time you shoot the crossbow, you have to reload it, which can be a hefty beat. So if you miss your shot, you'll be yelling, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, as you frantically try to reload before your opponent can launch their arrow back at you. The joy of this one are the split-second decisions and goofy chaos that naturally occurs in combat. If you miss your shot, does it make more sense to run and hide to reload, or swap to your dagger to rush your opponent instead? And this probably goes without saying, but playing with humans is key for this. The matches I played were against a mixture of bots and human players, and going up against humans was floods of adrenaline and giggles as we jumped around like idiots trying to splat each other. Whereas the bots were either totally brain dead or stupidly unfair. I had a great time with this though, a little rough around the edges, but I think its charms outweigh its flaws, and I hope this becomes a quick and dirty way for my buddies and me to deathmatch. And with 5 demos down, we are now entering my top 10 picks from Steam Next Fest. But before we continue, if you're new here and are enjoying the content so far, please do me a favor and subscribe and like. This is a huge help in making my content more visible in the algorithm. And also shoot me a comment of which demo you're the most interested in, or if there's something you played not featured here. Alrighty, let's keep trucking on. Eden's Inferno was a nice surprise. This is what I would call a platformer FPS, mixing speedrunning with Metroidvania exploration with a dash of Souls-like, and so far it's making for quite the tasty dish. The first thing that got me about this was the parry mechanic, which naturally lets you deflect enemy attacks, but more importantly, lets you kick yourself over gaps with these ring things, which also superpowers your weapon's next shot, punishing any enemy unlucky enough to be in your way. and it was one of those mechanics that instantly felt good and fun to me, immediately making me want to find other ring spots to traverse. Which brings us to the next thing I like, which is the overall structure. In Dark Souls fashion, the level I played had me respawning at the same point, with every death respawning the enemies as well. But as I progressed and uncovered keys and abilities, I was able to unlock shortcuts and new areas. So whenever I died, I was able to just speedrun through and get back to the main path, which gave me the sort of progression satisfaction I love from both Souls and Metroidvania titles. And where this demo really came alive for me, as with so many FPSs, is when I got the shotgun, which on top of being a good beefy boomstick, propels you into the air when shot at your feet, allowing you to access higher platforms and unlocking all new possibilities for progression and traversal. Sure, its visuals are on the modest side and the shooting can be a bit repetitive, especially with the pistol at the start, but this one just pressed the right buttons for me, not just in terms of shooters, but with the types of video games I like broadly, and I think it deserves a lot more attention. I'm not entirely sure how to describe Deeper Still, but boy is it fun. Basically, it's an immersive sim where you use combat, stealth, and a variety of abilities to complete objectives within simulated missions. And as I'm sure you can tell, it's stylistically all sorts of surreal, with bonkers visuals, bizarre enemies, and other unnerving strangeness, along with some sprinkles of silly. It's hard not to be reminded of titles like Cruelty Squad with this one, and like that title, Deeper Still so far earns its uncomfortable surrealness by having the gameplay to back it up. This demo is a good time. The gameplay is mechanically solid and gives you a host of entertaining abilities to dispatch and circumvent enemies, like a robot dog that's also a remote explosive. And each mission in the demo gave a lot of freedom and possibilities for how players could complete them. Difficult? Yes, but failure is a part of the charm, as players are meant to work out the best possible path to success. Did I understand this game? No, not one bit. Did I have fun? Hell yeah. If you're a Cruelty Squad fan, you're gonna want to give this a peek.
Drive taken. Drive secured.
Impulse is a competitive multiplayer FPS announced during this last month's Summer Games Fest, and it's essentially Titanfall, with the wall running, COD-style shooting, and being able to pilot a mech. You could almost say that Impulse is to Titanfall what Splitgate is to Halo. And oh gee, what do you know, Impulse's developer, 1047 Games, is the same team who developed Splitgate. And naturally, it has all the typical online shooter accoutrement of leveling up through experience, unlocking weapons, attachments, blah blah blah.
Drive recovered.
I got to say though, it's pretty fun. Has it where it counts in terms of movement and shooting, and the grapple hook mechanic is really intuitive and fun to use. Not to mention the paint grenade mechanic that can cover surfaces in various colors to aid your teammates, like orange paint to make them move faster, not unlike the orange paint from Portal 2. The first match I played was Team Deathmatch, with my team and I up against another team of bots, which means we destroyed them. I had a 20 kill streak and didn't die once. This got me a little nervous about future matchmaking, however it was a good way to get a hang of the mechanics. Second match I played was a lot better, as I was against some real humans that actually put up a challenge. And when that match got going, my god did it get going. It was a spectacle of fast-paced acrobatics and nail-biting gunfights. Pretty much exactly what I hope from this type of experience. And piloting the mechs are also a blast, once they spawn in. However, the particular map I was piloting this mech in felt a little too small for such a big hunk of metal, which did make it a little awkward, but still fun nevertheless.
Taken. 5 kill streak.
It's really hard for me to say if Empulse is going to make a splash in the multiplayer FPS scene, but so far this one seems to be making a solid go at it, and it also helps that the visual presentation is not only looking strong, but performing smoothly. Either way, I'm always happy to see more deathmatch out there.
Drive delivered. New drive.
Coming from a solo developer, The Void is an experimental wave-based shooter that presents like an arcade experience, but is really more akin to survival horror. You fight in a boggy, bone-filled arena simply called The Void, a sinister place with a mind of its own. Every round an item spawns at the church, whether it be ammo or a power-up like a shield or bullet time, and soon after, vile creatures emerge that are far from cuddly. What makes this one interesting is that it uses the environment to communicate information to the player. The direction of where enemies are approaching is signaled by church bells and the lighthouse flaring up, and it's up to players to decode this information, through trial and error, yes, but also by seeking out clues in the environment. However, as I said, The Void has a mind of its own and can be unpredictable, so don't be surprised if it outright lies to you or messes with your head in evil ways. So, full transparency, I did offer feedback to some early builds of this game and am listed in the credits, so take my recommendation here with a grain of salt. But I find this to be a rather engaging, fun, and addictive little shooter. Admittedly, I had some frustration in figuring it out, which I certainly consulted the developer about, very wise of him to include a how to play section in the menu, but once I wrapped my head around it, I quickly became hooked, helped in no small part by its smooth shooting and grim atmosphere and visuals, not to mention the sense of pressure in conserving your limited ammo and keeping the monsters at bay when the lights go out. It's still a work in progress, and there are rough aspects to this demo, but if you're looking for something simple and spooky to fill an evening, it's worth checking out. I'm curious to see where this one goes, always fun to see cool experiments like this in the genre. One of the big FPS demos featured was for the highly anticipated boomer shooter sequel, Warhammer 40k Boltgun 2. I actually covered this demo in my last State of the Boom, so I'm going to keep this short. If you want my full thoughts, I have that video linked below. But essentially, I thought the demo was good. The new character Naira Veyrath is fun to play as, with some enjoyable new weapons, and the tweaks and additions to returning character Malum Kaido are appreciated. However, playing the demo, it's hard not to feel that this is going to be more of a Boltgun 1.5 than 2. It feels like more of the same, which is not necessarily a bad thing because I thought Boltgun 1 rocked. But to be fair, the demo is only 2 levels, and who's to say what the full experience will bring. Either way, this was one of the standout FPS demos of NextFest, and very much worth a play from Boltgun fans and 40k fans broadly. A big surprise from Summer Games Fest, as well as Next Fest, was the inclusion of Brazilian Drug Dealer Before 4, Demons from the Portal to Hell I opened are still in the favela, and now I have to save Mama Das from Ronaldo. Sequel to last year's indie FPS sensation, Brazilian Drug Dealer 3, I opened a portal to hell in the favela trying to revive Mitaya, and I need to close it. My nickname for this is Jankquake because that's what it is. Powered by the Quake engine, it's as if you took Quake and dipped it in acid, both kinds of it, threw it into the Reddit and 4chan trash heap, and then covered it in some sort of sticky clear soda, hot sauce, and then spit on it. It's also a loving tribute to Brazilian bootleg culture, and if you don't know what that is, there is not enough time here to explain it, but it is one of the most fascinating, hilarious, and in its own way, beautiful phenomenons in gaming. So, I have a confession. While I have talked about it in prior State of the Booms, I have yet to play Brazilian Drug Dealer 3, I opened a portal to hell in the favela trying to revive Mitaya and I need to close it. So when I downloaded this demo for Brazilian Drug Dealer Before 4, Demons from the Portal to Hell I opened are still in the favela and now I have to save Mama Das from Ronaldo, I didn't really know what to expect, and sure enough, when I started it, I went,
"What the hell is even that?"
But then about 5 minutes into it, I found myself having a great time. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the absurdity, or maybe the awfully good movement controls. It could have been that crazy rendition of Vivaldi. Maybe all three. Either way, this demo was one of the funnest things I played in X-Fest and served as a wake-up call that I need to play Brazilian Drug Dealer 3. I opened a portal to hell in the favela trying to revive Mataya, and I need to close it.
Yo, watch the aim, since we don't have that much money in the budget to cover you shooting everything in sight.
Jeez, everyone's a critic.
A nice surprise for Next Fest was Night Dive releasing a demo for Sin Reloaded. Surprising because Night Dive rarely puts out demos. It's a good way to calm the nerves of Sin fans that have been waiting very patiently for this remaster, originally announced back in 2020, and show that it is indeed real and coming along. So how is the demo? It's good. It comes with 2 missions, one from the base Sin, another from its Wages of Sin expansion, both meant to give a taste of what Sin is and the new enhancements coming with it. The first thing I did was pop right into the settings, and to my joy, Night Dive included all sorts of options to customize the game, with the ability to turn off all enhancements and make everything as close to the original as possible. And FYI, you can hit the H key now to turn all enhancements on and off. There's a super brief loading screen for it, but very cool nonetheless. And as far as I can tell, Night Dive has once again pulled off their signature restoration style, balancing modern improvements and keeping the aesthetic true to the original, and these levels look clean and vivid, if not a bit blocky. Nostalgically blocky. In terms of gameplay, this is about as late 90s FPS as it gets. Tons of weapons, spongy enemies, and somewhat confusing map layouts. Magical, and it plays as smooth as butter. There are a few things I want to pick at though, first of all being, man, these levels sure are dark. The first level in particular had some rather inky shadows that made it real hard to see enemies, even when I tweaked the brightness settings. The second level gives you a flashlight and night vision, so not too much of an issue there, but my word, these maps sure had me a-squintin'. I did run into a bug where my dual pistols started tweaking out and I wasn't able to switch to another weapon, forcing me to reload a save. And I personally wouldn't mind the option to simplify the HUD. Not that Sins is terrible, but I'm not feeling all these blue lines and big weapon portraits. Sadly, still no release date yet for this despite the demo release, but with Night Dive's Thief remaster supposedly coming this winter, I'm thinking Sin might sneak out at the end of summer, maybe early fall. Yeah, I was not ready for Divine Frequency. My god. This GZ Doom-built survival horror FPS, rocking RPG and survival mechanics, just smothers you in its atmosphere right out the gate, chucking you in a haze of hellish red evil, filtered through VHS static, which you can turn off, if you're a coward. With a screen-shaking boomstick that really puts the in shotgun. Okay, that might have been a reach, but I already used a boomstick phrase earlier. I'm trying to switch it up. So this demo has been out for years now, however this was the first time I had a chance to play it, and frankly, seeing as this game's development has had some devastating setbacks, one being the tragic loss of its lead writer, I have no issue giving it some spotlight because, frankly, it's shaping up to be excellent. This is one of those titles that takes the GZ Doom engine and just bends it to its will, presenting a genuinely terrifying world dripping with horrific, crusty, rusty atmosphere, with beautifully rendered and animated gun models, not to mention the zigzagging bag-headed enemies that will make your skin crawl. Everything about this demo impressed me. The anxiety-inducing level design, the beefy, weighty combat, the RPG elements, inventory management. The only thing I can complain about is the demo was a bit hitchy. Some steep stutters here and there, mostly at the start though. But that's really a minor complaint all around. This is going to be something special, and I wish the developers nothing but the best considering the recent hardships they've been through. Like Boltgun 2, Sprawl Zero I've already covered. In fact, I gave it its own video that you can find linked in the description. So I'm going to keep this short. But man, to me this is not only the standout FPS demo of Next Fest, this is one of the best first-person anythings I've played this year, and is easily one of my most anticipated games of this year, period. And that's coming from someone who didn't really like the first game. I think the shift away from wall running and the focus on physics abilities and more frantic gunplay is right on the money here, and the visual and audio presentation so far is just freaking cool. Again, check out my video on the demo, and better yet, play it yourself. Now, if I hadn't done a video on Sprawl Zero already, it would have easily been my top pick. But since I did, for my number one pick, I decided to highlight a title I have been very excited for since it was revealed a few years back. And its demo did not disappoint. Since it was announced back in 2023, Retrospace has been building itself up as a goofy take on System Shock, and judging by this demo, yep, that's exactly what it is. Right down to the system's motivated gameplay, dreary atmosphere, audio logs, difficult combat, and a certain 4-number code. This demo successfully demonstrates that developer, The Wild Gentleman, understand the assignment, as during my 2 playthroughs, and ImSim is best enjoyed with multiple playthroughs, I discovered a wealth of options in how to navigate through this disco punk nightmare. Some obvious, some not so obvious. Tricky shortcuts, elaborate means of combat, and environmental manipulation, with the occasional unpredictable happening. And as I got a better understanding of the systems, I was able to improvise a few of my own tricks, or rather experiment and hope for the best. And while I had some ample firepower to blast my way through, I was comfortable keeping it as a last resort, as I always felt there was an approachable, non-combat solution at hand. Which is good, because if I had one critique of Retrospace so far, it's that the combat feels spongy and bland. One aspect I think is brilliant is when you die, you're resurrected as a clone, very much like the restoration bays from System Shock or Vita Chambers from BioShock. However, when you're brought back, there's a high chance you'll have a cloning error, throwing a big curveball in your gameplay. One time I died and came back with the flu, undermining stealth as I would randomly sneeze. Another death, I came back colorblind, and in a game where things are labeled green good, red death, that's pretty monumental. And another resurrection made me phobic of eating food, which, you know, heals you. Fret not though, it is possible to correct these mistakes as long as you have enough genetic material to do so, which can be collected from your corpse or the corpses of enemies. This demo made me feel like I was in a groovy sandbox. A horrifically dangerous groovy sandbox, but one I could bend to my will with some methodical gameplay. That was also very hard to predict. Fertile ground for novel experiences to emerge. The Looking Glass philosophy to a T. We sadly may never get a System Shock 3, but judging by this demo, there's a chance Retrospace could fill that void. ImSim diehards, check this out immediately if you haven't. Did you get a chance to play any of these demos? Which ones did you like the most? Which ones did you hate the most? And was there a demo you loved not mentioned here? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. It's a massive help with the algorithm. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.